So we have just completed the most strenuous period of holiday observance on the Jewish calendar, all right? This is our Christmas season, all right? Almost an entire month of celebrating in both a very serious and solemn manner, like Yom Kippur, Yizkor, right? As well as the most joyous manner, Simchas Torah, mixed in because of October 7th with mourning. So we've had every emotion you can imagine throughout this period of time. We're done with really the strongest symbols in Jewish ritual life, the shofar, the lulav, the etrogim, the sukkahs will come down. We call this Shabbat by the name of the Parsha, which is Shabbat Bereshit. Since this is the week, we have begun starting the cycle of Torah reading all over again with those first chapters of Genesis. So everybody remembers how that first chapter goes. We're told what God created on a particular day, and then the Torah says, Vayer Vayivoker Yom Rishon. There was evening, there was morning, the first day, the second day, and so forth. The seventh day, however, is a little bit different. And this, of course, is the seventh day. We're told that God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it because on it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. It's as awkward in the Hebrew as it is in the English. He rested from all his work which God had created and made. So if we were to take out 5 different English translations of the Torah, we would probably find 5 different ways of translating this awkward verse. One of the ways I became aware of how just awkward this verse is was while teaching the creation story to children. I once asked a student, what is it that God created on the seventh day? Now, of course, we do that as a trick question, right? What are they supposed to answer? Well, God didn't create anything on the seventh day. He just rested, and then the lesson would be taught. But the answer I received was, God created the Shabbat. God created the Shabbat. So I paused for a moment, because children, they get straight to the issue, right? It's not we always say, when we're asked a question, this is the most common answer today, it's complicated. Because I don't want to give an answer, so I just say it's complicated, right? Kids, it's not complicated. They go straight to the heart of the matter. So I thought about it, and I agreed, that answer is correct. God did create the Shabbat because it didn't just happen. Shabbat doesn't just happen, God created it. And that's true to this very day. Shabbat doesn't just happen, it has to be created. It has to be prepared for, it has to be observed in some manner. It has to be a Shabbat dinner, a challah, a cup of wine, a kiddush. In fact, isn't that the language we use? What do we say? We say to make Shabbos. Where does that come from? To make is the word that we use to describe God's creativity during those 6 days, those 7 days of creation. We make Shabbos. If not, if we don't make Shabbos, it doesn't happen. It's like the proverbial question, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear the crash, did it make a sound? Well, if Shabbat comes and no one observes it, was there actually a Shabbat? So one lesson that we learn from this awkward verse is that we have to make Shabbat, create it in some form or fashion in our homes, synagogues, and communities. A second lesson comes from a rabbinic commentary on the text itself. The rabbis say that the strange words, and God rested from all his work, which he had created and made, indicates there was still work to do. If he rested from all he had created and made, the rabbi said what that means is he rested from that, but he wasn't done. That's what the end of the sentence means. There's more work to do. So God only rested from the work he had already made, but plenty more to do. Just decided, I'll take a break. I'll rest. So what did the rabbis learn? Is that even God's work of creation is never done. It isn't over. It isn't finished. From this came what I believe is probably one of the greatest ideas Judaism ever developed, and that is we are partners in God's creation. God's world is unfinished because he only rested from the work he had done, but he had more to do, so it's unfinished, and we are charged with the task of helping to finish it. That's where we get the idea of perfecting the world. The lesson that comes from this is that life is not a task that can be finished. So think about how we speak. When someone has achieved their goal in life, what do we say? That person has arrived. They arrived because they reached their goal. What they have sought is now theirs. Sometimes we use the word finish to express an accomplishment, but sometimes we use the word finish to express despair. I remember how people who were hit hard by Hurricane Andrew, people in the West Coast now were hit hard by recent devastating hurricanes in North Carolina. They lose homes, they lose businesses, and you know what you hear very often? I'm finished. I'm finished. So now finishing here is despair, not completion and moving forward. And everyone has said that at one time or another in their lives. We're at our wits' end. We can't even figure out the future. Life's work seems to be over. Sense of failure at that moment. And we say, I'm finished. So what we learned from this first chapter of Genesis is that there is no point which may be considered the place of arrival. There is no place that is called the end, because after Shabbat, we go right back to work. Sheshet Yamim, 6 days you shall work, and on the seventh day you rest. So Shabbat is just the pause that leads to the next step of perfecting, of improving, of building. There are landmarks and there are milestones, but as long as we're alive, we can never say, I'm finished. Even God said, after he seemed to have finished creation, I'm not finished. There's more to do, more to accomplish. I just took a break from the action. So this year, Sukkot was amazing. Great weather, pleasant breezes. People sat in the sukkah until 9, 10, 11 at night, just enjoying these incredible, beautiful evenings after, 4 straight months in which there wasn't a single day that it didn't hit 90 degrees, right? Think back to last year. We hardly got to finish a meal in the sukkah. Rainy, stormy, buggy, most of the holiday. And then it ended on October 7th. Sukkot to forget, but to remember for different reasons. So one rabbi told me he almost didn't build a sukkah this year. He figured, look, I'll hardly have any opportunity to use it. So if there's a nice night, maybe I'll go to the synagogue sukkah. Well, in the end, he changed his mind. And of course, he was glad that he did. I remember the year Hurricane Wilma hit. We all had to take down our sukkah in the middle of the holiday, lest it blow into one of our neighbors' houses and break some of their windows. Then we sat without electricity in our homes, so we were back. It's like we were in the sukkah. Lights weren't working in the streets, trees were down everywhere. And my colleague in Hollywood, Temple Bethel, came by to see me then. His sanctuary was devastated. His office was flooded, the social hall was leaking like a sieve. Our electricity in the shul had come on already because we're lucky, we're connected to the hospital, right? And we were air conditioned. So he came and hung out at Beth Torah every day just to cool off and to prepare for what he needed to do to rebuild his shul. The task seemed absolutely overwhelming. It seemed impossible. There wasn't a piece of the synagogue that wasn't severely damaged. But pick up the pieces they did. He's since retired. He's doing writing and teaching, splitting his time between Miami and up north in Virginia where his children live. And his synagogue with this new rabbi are davening in a newly renovated sanctuary. The whole shul has been renovated. They've got high tech everywhere. People can't even remember what the synagogue looked like before Hurricane Wilma. So we see today communities devastated by tornadoes and fires and hurricanes. But you know what? They all find a way to rebuild. Just as all the communities along Gaza, someday, maybe in 5 years, 10 years, we'll visit there and they'll be completely rebuilt and even stronger. The truth is, communities, institutions are always rebuilding, always expanding or shrinking or adjusting or improving. And the ones that aren't are the ones that are in trouble. Look at our inner cities in America. One of the reasons they are in such trouble is because we considered them finished. Finished. Done. Can't be fixed. So we stopped building when we failed to replace obsolete housing. We stopped shifting to different economies when the economy changed. People stopped investing. And we let our inner cities decline because we believed they were finished, couldn't be salvaged. And it's true with institutions like schools and synagogues. When they stop rebuilding, when they stop changing and developing, when they think that they're finished, then they are finished. They decline and they die. You know who understood the concept very, very well? His name is Bill Clinton. He used that idea to defeat George Bush Sr. and become the president. During the campaign, he kept on asking, are we better off than we were 4 years ago? And his slogan was, we can do better. He understood the human psyche. It went right to the human spirit, the American spirit, and what we have learned from chapter 1 of Genesis. You can't go backwards. You can't stay still without losing a sense of your future, a sense of your humanity. If you sit back and do nothing, things do not stay the same. They don't get better, they get worse. You're either going forward or you're going backwards. There's no such thing as standing still. Even when God rested on the seventh day, he was still doing something. The kid was right. He was creating something. He was creating the pause that allowed to refresh, analyze, and then regroup after Havdalah and get back to work. Even the day of rest itself, the Shabbat, the day which signifies a cessation from creation, you still have to do something to make it Shabbos. And it's true about education as well. What happens if you stop studying? The usual answer is, if I stop studying, then I don't learn anything new. Wrong. It's an incomplete answer. If you stop studying, you don't only not learn anything new, you forget much of what you learned. Because that process of studying is the only thing that keeps you sharp and allows you to take what you learned and connect it to what you are now learning. The late Gene Greenswag, he headed up Central Agency for Jewish Education in Miami for decades and helped invent the March of the Living. He once told the story of how his father continued to attend study sessions at his synagogue till the last days of his life, literally. He passed away, he was almost 90. He would not stop studying because he didn't want to be finished. As long as he was alive, he wanted to be moving forward, not backwards. As long as he was alive, he had things to accomplish and to learn. So if we don't continue to study, if we don't make Shabbos, if we don't embrace a certain amount of change and innovation, then we are finished with all the work we have done. Remember Yogi Berra, the most inarticulate but profound philosopher who was catcher for the New York Yankees. And he put it this way: it ain't over till it's over. That's what Genesis is telling us. That's how I would summarize it. Even after Vayichulu Hashemayim, after God finishes his work, what they're really saying in that awkward verse is, it ain't over till it's over. Unless we just stop doing that which makes us human. Learning, progressing, making Shabbos happen. We are God's partners in creation, and what God told us is, there's a time to rest, but there is never a time to quit. That's a great lesson to learn from the first parsha of our Torah, a great reason to come back and see what we can learn from next week's parsha as well. Shabbat Shalom.